Good morning, my coffee loving diamond painting friends. Today is the second installment for What's in the Cup. And what's in the cup today is espresso. And espresso is the foundation for all those coffee drinks that we love, cappuccino, latte. With espresso, with a shot of espresso, you can make an espresso campana, you can have a macchiato, you can make a breve, you can make an Americano. And I'll tell you a little bit about my own introduction to espresso because it was a whole new world for me after perked coffee when I found espresso back in the 80s on a famous little street in Philadelphia called South Street. And South Street back in the 80s was a place for vintage shopping. It was punk rock, it was disco, it was grunge, it was bands, it was booze, it was alternate styles of, how can I put this? Alternate styles of how you wanted to express yourself and what you related to. So it was a place for everyone. And the greatest thing about South Street was it was a place just to like cruise down the street, to be seen, to see other people. And I was maybe in my early, I was clubbing, so I had to be over 21. And I had walked by a shop and the only thing that I got was this intense aroma, like right in my face. I'm like, oh, what is that? It smells like my grandmother's kitchen, only stronger. And fortunately for me, well, that's not really true. It became fortunate for me because my friends were not interested in walking around with a coffee drink or with a coffee. I mean, this is the 80s. I mean, I don't know what the hell we were walking around. We were walking around with like boardwalk fries, I think. Whereas today, everybody's got a coffee drink in their hand or a tumbler or something. But no one was interested, and I had to go back on my own and investigate. And unfortunately for me, I ran into a friend who was also vintage shopping and was a little bit more cosmopolitan than I was, and had traveled to Europe and said, well, that's an espresso bar. You've never had an espresso? And I was like, no, what is it? And so we went. And I'll tell you, I don't think I heard a thing that anybody was saying to me. I was just leaning over the counter, watching this magic happen, what is going on. The beans are being ground in front of me and they're being tamped down and it's put in this contraption and it's coming out very short and very strong. What are these people doing in this place? They're reading a book. What are they doing? It was my first introduction to a cafe. And I remember, just having my first espresso and being taught how to drink it. Now, espresso is not a beverage that makes you speed. That's a myth. Espresso is a coffee. It's basically a coffee in its simplest terms that is brewed under extreme pressure. And what happens is that you get a very condensed liquid, gold, I call it, that is intense, it's bold, and you drink it very quickly. You don't linger with it, you don't sit with your girlfriends with it, you drink it very quickly. It's almost like a shot. So I think another way of explaining what espresso is like you have your chicken stock, and then you have your chicken bouillon. So you have your coffee, and then you have your bouillon, which has more intense flavor that you have to reconstitute, but maybe you're not going to reconstitute all the way. Maybe I confused you more. But I was trying to think of like, what do we have that's concentrated that we add a little bit of liquid to? Anyway, so I had my first espresso, the whole, shebang with the little lemon peel on the side that you rub around the cup, and you add a little bit of sugar cube, stir, kick it back, and I was just like, wow, holy cow, like you get this intense flavor of boldness on the palate, on the top of the palate, top of your tongue, which when you close your mouth and the roof of your mouth marries your tongue and seals the deal, and you're just like, oh my God, Mamma Mia, what is this? and it lingers. And the intensity made me want a cigarette. It was that good. And I was a smoker in the 20s, unfortunately. Thank God I don't do it anymore, but they just marry each other perfectly. Now I have a piece of chocolate with my espresso because they marry each other perfectly too. In fact, anytime I make anything that is chocolate based, I add a little espresso to it, and I have chocolate with my espresso because they complement each other like a perfect wine and cheese. So that was my introduction into espresso. It opened up a whole new world for me. And I just fell in love, and I felt so sophisticated when I went somewhere and I was like, oh, I'll have an espresso. I was able to like impress everybody, you know, my other uncultured friends like myself who never had an espresso, and she was in her 20s, and, you know, was able to teach everyone, you know, what espresso was. But to dig a little bit further, where did espresso come from? Well, it came from Milan, and the inventor of espresso, Luigi Bezzera, in the early 1900s, I think it was around 1901, 2, 3, that early, wanted to make a fast coffee. Now, I don't know how they were making coffee back then, but he wanted something quick. And he was the first to put, maybe not. He made a machine that made this espresso so quick that he called it fast coffee machine. And he later on met Pavoni. I'm not sure what his first name was. Even though Luigi was the creator, Pavoni was the marketer. He was able to see a little bit more into what Luigi created. So he purchased some of the rights for his machine and then later patented. He patented it, which reminds me, since this is like, you know, espresso is kind of blending into my diamond painting, and it made me think of how important it is for us creators to get our stuff trademarked, to get it registered, to get it watermarked, copyrighted, because even though Luigi was the creator, he really didn't have the smarts to say, hey, I created something here that could be something big. He didn't have the foresight to see that, and Pavoni did. And so Pavoni then later, I believe that Pavoni and Bezzera went to the Milan Fair with their first fast coffee machine, which, by the way, in Italian, fast translates to espresso. So that's where we got the word espresso from, of course. And they went to the fair, and at that time, what was his name? Oh my gosh, what was his name? Achille Gaggia, Gaggia. I'll put all these names down below. He invented, we're fast forwarding now to the 30s, maybe even the early 40s. He invented coffee being made under extreme pressure, and that is what we have today. Espresso is coffee beans ground down very fine, and the elixir that comes out of it is extracted by putting boiling water, high pressure, through the coffee bean and into the cup. So that's what's going to be in our cup. And then after that, we're going over to our diamond painting, and we're going to get ready for drills and chills in week 5. Let me just look over my notes. I want to make sure I told you everything. All the coffee drinks. Yep. Oh, I forgot one espresso drink. Well, maybe it's not really an espresso. No, I'm going to keep that out. It's not really an espresso. Yeah, I told you guys everything other than with these coffee drinks that you make out of espresso. Okay. Espresso is something that Italians drink all day long. It's just like a pick-me-up, like a tiramisu. That's what tiramisu means, pick-me-up, and it's a perfect complement to an espresso. And they drink it all day long because in the morning they've had their cappuccino or they've had their latte, and then that's over with. You don't drink cappuccino in the middle of the afternoon. It's just not done. So they would either have a coffee or they would have a shot of espresso. So that's what I'm going to tell you. And we'll get more into that when we get into making these coffee drinks. But let's make one. Let's make one. I would love to have a professional espresso machine in my house, but I don't have the electricity for it, number one. And let's lower the music since it's decided to go into commercial. But I did own my own cafe in New York, and I will tell you one thing. Had I known about Nespresso, this is a baby Nespresso machine. This one actually resides in my bedroom, but I brought it down to my living room to do my little demo. I actually have another Nespresso in my kitchen, but that's a bigger coffee pot. I think I'm going to save that for when we make cappuccinos and lattes, and some tricks and tips that I could show you about making a really good cappuccino, and maybe even some stories from my cafe that have to do with celebrities and stuff that are really like funny and exciting for the area that I was in. I was in the NYU area. My cafe was in New York. Anyway, so we're going to make an espresso. And like I said, had I known about Nespresso when I owned Pedal Bell, I would have been serving Nespresso. I would have been serving Nespresso. Ever since I met this machine, my tagline for it is, ever since I met you, I don't have to go out. I love it that much. I do love my Nespresso. So, Nespresso is made by placing, the espresso in one of these little capsules, and you open it up. The last one is going into a little container here, and you place it in and you close it. Now, I was just in my local BJ's, and they had this little Nespresso for like $70. I actually bought mine in the espresso store in New York. This came with a steamer that allows you to steam your milk perfectly. That's another reason why, had I known about Nespresso when I had my cafe, I would have had their little steamers that make the milk, because it's impossible really, and from my own experience, everyone has a different hand. Everybody else steams a little bit longer, and I'm a type of person that I like consistency. I don't like to go and say, oh, you know what, if this person or this barista is not here, my cappuccino doesn't come out as good. I want consistency every time that you come in. So my capsule is in there. I have this pretty little cup that I got from Amazon. And I'm using my see-through cup so that you can see the espresso and the crema that come out. And so I think I'm going to make a short there's a lovely crema too that comes on top of the cappuccino. Now that might be just a little bit too short for me, or maybe it's just the cup. I'm gonna take a look inside. It's pretty hot. So classically, the way that you would drink an espresso is to just put a little sugar. Now I have pure cane sugar here, and that measures out a teaspoon. And I have my little spoon. And this is my espresso. Has a lovely crema on top that you get, the extraction that you get out of the coffee beans from being extracted out from such pressure through the capsule that's in there. That was a small capsule in there. And that's it. It goes down the hatch. And that's the other thing. I believe I may have put one of the caramel pods in here. Now, this for me, right now, I probably would have made myself a con panna, and I would have put a little cream on top. If I had my little steamer out that foams my milk, it does a micro foam, I probably would have had a little bit of milk left over, and I would have had it go through another go around, and I would have maybe put a little steamed milk on top and had a macchiato. But the aroma is so strong. Oh my gosh. I say it all the time. I wish you were here. I'd make you one. It's so intense that it goes through levels of flavor. The caramel, the coffee, the little bit of sugar at the end, and it lingers on the top of the palate. and then it coats the roof of the mouth with the crema. It's so exciting. It's such a delicate, though, pleasure for what it packs. And something else that I used to do when I would come in the morning and I would open my cafe, I would have the first espresso, of course. I'm there, I'm turning everything on, but also just to test. The weather affects your coffee. I wanted to make sure the machine, the pressure, everything was good. And I would make a few, and I would take off the top layer, the crema, and I would put it in a cup, much like this. And I would put some natural sugar on the bottom, and I would put this crema on top, and I would keep stirring it and stirring it and stirring it and stirring it and stirring it, maybe adding a little espresso until it became very caramely and syrupy, but thick. Almost like when you make caramels. And then I would leave this on top of my espresso machine, and when my customers came in that I knew were espresso fanatics like me, and I knew that they put sugar in their espresso, I would ask them, would you like some espresso sugar that I made this morning? And they'd be like, oh yeah. And it was almost like dropping caramel in there. It's so good. So that's another little thing that you can do if you have a place to keep your little espresso cup warm. If you're home during the day, or if you're making espresso for your friends that are coming over for brunch, you can make them a little espresso sugar, or even put it in your own coffee that you have. You just get a little, maybe get a second. I have a little tower here. I would, because I'm home and I don't have that warmer on top of the espresso machine, I would put hot water in this one, and I would put this one on top, and I would keep my little coffee sugar nice and warm so that it stays. You don't want it to get cold, because then it will get hard. And I would have my little coffee sugar for a little while anyway. And that's my second edition of What's in the Cup. And now I'm so happy that I can go over and be wide awake for my whip when I do haunt it. Week 5, drills and chills. So I will see you in a few over at my whip and chat. Get your workout, get your work in progress out. Go have a shot of espresso. Oh, that's another thing I wanted to tell you. If you do have an espresso maker that you have for your stove top, I will tell you what I used. I used Melita, which is, oh my God, it's wonderful, Melita. Melita has a very dark chocolate kind of layer to it. Or I used Lavazza Super Crema, and that has a gorgeous, I would serve that one in the restaurant. And anytime someone ordered coffee, I made them basically an Americano, which is espresso, and then you put hot water in it. So the machine, I had a Seiko at the time, did that for me. And so I would put Lavazza Super Crema in the basket, but I would make an Americano, and it had such a wonderful crema on top that every time I went to the table with someone's order for coffee, they would say, no, I ordered black coffee. I didn't order coffee with cream. That's how super crema that is. It's so delicious. I had people coming into my place. I served pizza. I had people coming into my place for coffee and cannolis because they were both so delish. Anyway, oh, I didn't even give you a cookie. Let me give you a cookie before you go. I got a maple cookie. My son brought them for me. It's maple with like vanilla cream. Oh, I don't have anything to dunk it into. Who cares? See you in the next one. Bye. Go create your espresso.